children of Da Vinci, and hear the great deeds of ages past. The words I speak are those of my teacher, and their teachers before, pure and full of truth. For we are griots. Centuries of history and learning reside in our minds. Thus we serve our community with the wisdom of history, bringing to life the lessons of the past so the future may flourish. Listen, then, to the story of sub-Saharan Africa's past.
Would you mind filming for me?
Long ago, in the continent of Africa, there lived two families. They had a dwelling that could hold them, but they needed just a little bit more space. Soon, there was a kingdom. These two families became small trading cities, not long after they could specialize and develop new skills. One of the cities gained power by taxing incoming traders who came through their land. They also acted as a trader center, and it was not long before everybody knew their name. This was Ghana. The other city grew as well, but didn't come to power until later. This was Mali. They grew a little bit slower than Ghana, but were soon able to overthrow them and gain control of the land. They were led by a man named Mansa Musa. He was rumored to be the richest man in all of the world. Mansa Musa's most spectacular journey was his pilgrimage to Mecca, also known as the Hajj. By this time, most of Africa had converted to Islam. The third empire was Songhai, a trade center in Mali's empire that was able to gain power after Mansa Musa's death. When Mali was struggling, Songhai gained power and ruled the lands. During this time, Islam was spreading through Africa. Through all of these empires, Islam affected the way that people's daily lives were lived. There were new architectural ideas being introduced to the people, and new knowledge being spread across all of the world. And in that world was a story, not in Songhai's world, but Mali's. In Africa, a new story begins, not of the government, but of the people of the land.
Our story starts in the flat hot plains of the Sahel, where a young camel was born. This camel's name was Ayu. She was a very curious camel. Ayu spent her days wandering through the hot and sandy Sahel, spending hours drinking from the full Niger River and admiring the acacia trees around her. This daily routine has not been interesting to Ayu lately. She has a new thirst for adventure. She remembers a friend she once had, a bibi. She was a beautiful common kestrel with long wings that seemed like they could fly forever. Ayu would love to listen to a bibi tell riveting stories about her adventures across Africa. Ayu's favorite story was when a bibi was flying through the hazy mist of the Atlas Mountains like a dolphin gliding through the salty sea. With the quaint village below and the sienna-colored mountains around her, she felt like she was home. Ayu had always wanted to feel like she was home, but everywhere she went didn't seem like it. She just wanted to be able to fly, just like a bibi. Fly over the lush green Congolese forests, see the flowing Nile to the east, feel the deadly hot air splash against her face as she flies above the Sahara Desert, and maybe one day over the big blue Atlantic to the west. This was a big dream for Ayu. All she wanted was an adventure. Just as she was about to drift off to sleep in the warm summer sun, she heard the distant sounds of deep grunts followed by the clang of pots and pans. This is what Ayu has been waiting for, the sound of adventure. A camel caravan was passing by, full of at least 300 camels. Ayu couldn't help herself. She had to jump at this chance. She galloped over there and gave the biggest, loudest, deepest groan she could. Two fairly tall traders looked over to see what was going on, and that's when they spotted her. Ayu was pleased with their reaction. They smiled and laughed. They said, "It's a miracle. We have just lost a camel, and God brings us a new one." They quickly tied her up to another camel close to her size. Ayu was so excited. Though she would miss her daily routine of drinking from the Niger, she didn't look back. This was her new life. After 9 days of traveling, they had finally reached the Sahara. It was a beautiful place with rolling dunes of golden-colored sand that looked like as if they went on forever. Although this place is much more beautiful than the Sahel, it was twice as hot. Ayu quickly lost her energy. The box of salt on her back was beginning to grow heavy. But Ayu was not going to let this bother her. She was now a trading camel, traveling from sea to sea, desert to desert. Day after day, they walked golden sands and passed by the occasional oasis, where they stopped and stocked up with water, fruit, and sometimes silver materials. After they had these things, they packed up and left for their destination.
Talked about how the king was rumored to be the richest man in all of the world. Ayu had no use for the metals and shells that people used to trade. Instead, she valued things like food and water. I found it silly that the people were so interested in the shiny metallic objects. People came to trade, but not as many as in Ghana. Ghana was a bustling trade center. People from all over Africa came to trade. The traders talked about what they could bring back with them. AU soon found the fault in their plan. Molly was magnificent, unlike anything she had seen before, ever. She was different from the villages. It was large with so many people. It took what seemed like forever to reach the traders' destination. It wasn't much to look at, but the inhabitants were quite nice to AU. They gave her fresh water to drink and some green leaves. AU did not understand why they gave her these gifts, but she accepted them with thanks. In the morning, when AU awoke, she found herself alone in the stables. She felt a tug on her neck. One of the traders gestured as if to say, "Come here." AU did as she had been told. Soon she was out in the street. She could tell it was morning based on the position of the sun. She was led to a group of men who claimed to be collecting camels for the king. What a silly errand there, you thought, not knowing what she would soon be a part of. AU had been traded away for some shiny yellow metal. The men seemed happy with it, so she felt fine with leaving them. AU found herself being led to the king's home. It was a larger building, with more people in it. Inside sat a man, and around him was an entourage of people with the same shiny metal as the traders, but none of them had as much as the man sitting in the throne. She was led away from the room. She wanted to stay, but the traders insisted. They walked for a while until they came upon a large group of camels, each loaded with what seemed like bottomless bags, all filled with the same shiny yellow metal. Aya was led to an empty spot. It was packed with their own shiny metal. Soon after, they left towards a place Aya did not know. It assumed it was very nice because all along the way the people were spread.
Okay, it's repeat after me song.
Song.
The camels are walking.
The camels are walking.
The camels are walking.
The camels are walking.
To carry the salt and gold.
There's the salt and gold.
All throughout the day.
All throughout the day.
Up in Musa.
Musa.
Take a break in Cairo.
Take a break in Cairo.
Taking a break in Cairo.
Taking a break in Cairo.
Now we're out of Africa.
Now we're out of Africa.
All together now we're
Out of Africa.
Caravan was amazing. Musa traveled with 60,000 men and 12,000 slaves. All the people carried walking sticks made of solid gold. His mother's eyes sparkled and his father's eyes gleamed. The splendor of it all was incredible. He could see Musa on his throne moving through the crowd. The gold shined brightly through the air, making the caravan look as if it was floating on sunshine. There were 80 camels straining under the weight of 300 pounds each. All the people wore fancy clothes. He had never seen such a beautiful sight. Musa was a very powerful man. He ruled over the huge empire of Mali. Mali was one of the largest empires in the world. It took 4 months on camelback to travel across the empire. Musa had been said to be the wealthiest man ever in history. In the city of Cairo lived a boy named Defari. He watched the gold rain down like shooting stars on a midsummer's eve. Musa tossed him a bag of gold dust. Defari caught it and raised his fist in glorious triumph. He was rich! Hooray! A day later, he was walking through the marketplace when he saw a beautiful camel. With this camel, he could travel the continent and tell stories that had never been told before. He walked up to the merchant and bought the camel. Her name was Ada. That same day, he was walking with his new camel. He saw some armed men. I wonder what they're doing here, he thought. One of the men walked up to him and said, "Hello, young man. It's a fine camel you have there. Would you like to take her on a trip to the great Zimbabwe?" Yes. "Well, I did want to see all of Africa," Defari replied. "I'll do it. This way." The next day, they set off to great Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe was marvelous. It had arching stone walls and beautiful carvings. The stone walls were over 25 feet high, and they were made
Zimbabwe, she saw a group of people dancing, but none of them appeared very cheerful. After observing for a while, she was able to tell that it was a funeral that was taking place. The reason for the dancing was to provide the dead with light feet. During the actual process of the body being buried, no one was talking, for the immediate family is not allowed to talk at all. You noticed that many household items were being placed in the grave, and she assumed them to have been previously owned by the deceased. After the funeral, everyone had to follow a ritual to cleanse themselves of the dust from the graveyard, and to get rid of bad luck. Ayu's caravan stayed in the area for around a week, and during that time, she noticed that the people who were affected by the funeral ceased to wear any color besides black, shave their hair, socialize, or have contact with anyone. Ayu found herself rather depressed after the funeral, but her head spun with all her new knowledge. To a camel, Great Zimbabwe was a big place filled with many wonders, and she clomped along to another part of the area to explore. All of a sudden, there were bright colors and joyful sounds swirling all around her. It was nothing like a funeral, and the difference to her was rather jarring. It was a gigantic festival that appeared to be well underway, like it had been going on for many days already. It was a wedding, with multiple couples getting married, and they were all quite young, she noticed, the youngest being 13 years old. Ayu overheard a man dressed in finery telling his family that this celebration inspired him to have another wedding, for men are allowed to have up to 4 wives if they have enough money. She later saw one of the brides bragging to a younger girl about how she had been engaged since before she was born. A common belief was that there were spirits of non-man-made inanimate objects. This was also known as animism. Ayu soon shared the theory that the spirits could affect people's lives for the better or for the worse. It was also thought that animals represented certain gods, and for that reason, animals were sacrificed to, in a way, spread the god. The good spirits protected people from injuries and illness, along with warding away bad luck. If someone did get sick, they would treat the sickness and make it rain more, so that there would be plenty of crops. As Ayu learned, if one went with the beliefs and did what had to be done, the spirits would reward them. Another important aspect of religion was ancestors of people still living who, as Ayu heard tell, were said to have been honored for the good they did while living. They were the communicators between the world of the living and the world of the spirits, and they were heard through the village's holy men. Although the ancestors were powerful, the spirits were more dominant. Because of their power, however, ancestors were part of many religious rituals, and family was valued because they were the way to remember their ancestors. After learning all of this, Ayu was cautious of her actions, for she wanted the spirits to reward her.